Welcome, my friends. My name's Brian. Welcome to the Back 40. And we are going to be taking a journey today on probably one of the biggest banes of my existence. And we've got a lot to unpack, so let's dive right into this. Today's topic is going to be about task paralysis, ADHD paralysis, uh, perfection paralysis. Goes by a number of different names. And as I said, we've got a lot to unpack, so let's just dive right into this. So we've got um, what exactly is task paralysis? We're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about some other terms that are used, what it's caused by, what are some different types, what are some symptoms, what are the consequences of having it. We're going to introduce a term or a idea of motivation equation, and we're going to talk about some management of the symptoms. So let's talk about what exactly it is. Task initiation it's an inability to initiate a task, mostly because you're waiting for the perfect time, the perfect set of conditions. You're waiting for all the stars to align in order to get started. Uh, some other terms that are used for it, as I said earlier, we've got perfection paralysis, we've got analysis paralysis, we've got ADHD paralysis. Uh, they all kind of there are different nuances amongst those about so the terms are not necessarily interchangeable, but the end result is pretty much the same. We got different things that it's caused by. It can be caused by fear. We've got fear of success, something I haven't really heard about, but when I think about it, that's one of the things that I probably uh, that stops me in my tracks from doing a lot of things, and that is just you're worried that if you actually do succeed at this task, it is going to really uproot your normal daily life. It can interfere with your work life balance. It can also interfere if you say you do become really successful and you're worried about you'll get a lot of money. If you ever seen uh, people that have won the lotto, and it's just that sometimes having money actually buys misery, not so much happiness. You can have a fear of failure, and this is when you've tried a task possibly in the past and it's fell flat on its face, and you've had some consequences as a result of that, or you're just worried that you're just going to be made fun of, or in social media, that's one of the big things that you hear a lot about. So that can be a topic as well. It can be a neurological source to it. You can have due to ADHD. It can be as a result of physical neurological dysfunction, such as traumatic brain injuries. It can be as result in a deficit in executive functioning. These are your areas that work at working memory. They work on cognitive flexibility. They work on your inhibition control. Take it from somebody who suffers from pretty significant ADHD. Tick all the above. We could have, as I said, it can also be caused by some psychological disorders. You can have some past experiences. Maybe you've tried something that you've deemed important, and you've gotten some negative reaction to it, and so it can cause some psychological hurdles to overcome. You can develop what's called learned helplessness, that if you do things and you keep failing and you keep failing and you keep failing, you just get into this mind script of I'm just a failure, and so you just learn to be helpless. Or if you have tried things and as you're doing it, something else steps in and just keeps doing it and succeeding it for you. You just learn that you can't do it on your own, that you've got something else doing it for you. And so you can be another source of learned helplessness. Anxiety, of course. You can be just anxious and have a high level of anxiety, and that stops you right in your tracks. It can be trauma. As I said earlier, if you've tried stuff in the past and you just get a lot of negative and sometimes psychological negative response to it, whether a result of bullying or whatever the case might be, that can lead into this idea of I can't get past getting started. There's different, as I said, there's types of it. As a result of it, you can have mental paralysis, which is the kind of your inability to quiet your mind down, and your mind is just constantly racing, and that's again, sometimes people with ADHD, such as myself, that is just one of the things. My mind just doesn't filter. It is just constantly on the go, and to the point where it's either light speed or it's stop. And so you can get this mental paralysis. You're just constantly thinking about it. You get choice paralysis, which is it's an inability to make a choice amongst numerous different options. Something as simple as where to go to eat tonight. I know everyone's probably experienced that to some degree. Of you get a group of people, let's go out to eat. What are you in the mood for? Chinese? No. Italian? This? What type of Chinese? It just too many choices, and so that can kind of shut things down in place. You can also get what's called task paralysis, and that's the inability to start a task or sometimes finish it. You're just constantly going, and you're just constantly tweaking it. Say you've got a writer who's just goes back and is just constantly doing proofreading, and to the point where the task just never ends. Symptoms. The symptoms can be vast and wide, and as I said, with the differences between perfection paralysis and analysis paralysis and ADHD paralysis, the symptoms are more or less it's about the nuances of each. You can have paralysis is a little bit different than procrastination. Procrastination is just it's an avoidance technique. I've got this to do, but you know what? I just don't feel like doing it. I'm going to do something else, and you just keep putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. As opposed to paralysis, which is you don't want to keep putting it off. You feel bad. You want to get it done, but there's just something that's stopping you dead in your tracks. We've got it can be as a result of an autonomic nervous issue, where your autonomic nervous system is your fight, flight, or freeze. Freeze is a term that has kind of come into the terminology somewhat recently. If everyone knows about your fight or flight response, that if something's coming at you, you're either going to fight it, or if it's something that you know you can't win, you're going to run from it. But what if neither of those are options, where the task is so daunting and it's so overwhelming, you can't outrun it, but you know it's going to kick you in the butt? You can have this third response, which is freezing, and this is kind of where this paralysis sets in. Everyone's probably heard about the fainting goats, and it is a mechanism that is built into us. It's in our biology. It's in our DNA. Let's go back here. Some other symptoms of it. You can become hyper focused. This is where it's taken me probably over a year just to get this particular topic on film, probably due to this hyper focus and this hyper analytical part. Being hyper focused, it's not so much a laziness issue. In fact, you're constantly busy. You're just constantly going. It's just you're spending all your time and all your effort and all your energy on all the wrong stuff. Hyper analytical. You have your intensity threshold is either higher or lower, where usually it's a little bit higher. That we all have these things that will move us into action if need be. But when people that have this type of paralysis going on, that threshold is way high. It takes a lot. It's going to take a whole lot to finally get that car in gear. And So you don't get to that point of just, okay, I got to get this done. Um, Consequences of it. There are numerous consequences to having this. You've got some financial consequences. Term I'll heard or slash has been thrown around, and you've got this paralysis tax, which is things like late fees, missed investments, home car maintenance. So, for instance, that check engine light comes on, and the fear is, oh, it can be something big, so I'm not gonna, I just can't focus, I can't do this, and you just keep putting it off and putting it off till finally your engine blows up. You've got missed opportunities, missed investments where there's stuff. Take 401ks. I'm a good example of that, where you want to invest. You got some ideas of how to invest in things, but you're just fear, anxiety. I'll wait till I have the opportunity is right, and then I'll put the money in. Late fees, as earlier, it was a couple months ago, I got a parking ticket, and there were no fees associated with it. The ticket was just for the parking spot. It was something like $5, and you pay it within something like 72 hours or whatever, and it was here locally. And okay, just run down. You even had to just throw the money in the envelope that they provided for you and throw it in the mail, send it back. Nope. So now all of a sudden I got fees attached to it. And what was $5, then I ended up missing the paying it. So then it went to court, and I missed the court date. And now a $5 ticket ended up being like $100 because of just all these fees. So these paralysis taxes, as I call them. Other consequences, you've got some social consequences where I talked earlier about menus, but it can go bigger than that. I'm just, oh, I've got this to go to, I got that to go to, I got all these things to do. Well, you know what? I'm just not going to do any of them. Or you just choose that it's just too overwhelming to get involved in any of it, so you involve in nothing of it. Missed relationships. May like somebody, but you just keep analyzing why, waiting for just the right time instead of just biting the bullet and going up to that person and introducing yourself, saying hi. It can be romantic relationships, but it can also be work relationships, social relationships of just going out and meeting friends. You've got difficulty making plans, obviously. End result is kind of this social isolation, and you end up, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where you're just, well, nobody wants to be around me, and so I end up being alone, and so you get this social isolation. Professional consequences, where there's a job opportunity, and you spend so much time weighing the pros, weighing the cons, this, that, the other thing, that you miss the opportunity. It goes to somebody else. It can be educational as well. Just getting a certificate, working towards that degree can boost your income dramatically. But again, pros and cons get factored in till nothing ends up happening. And decades later, you're still stuck where you are. As I said, missed promotions. It can be seen as lazy, but it's really not. It's said earlier, it's not so much a laziness. It is an inability to move forward. Health consequences. Exercise, just putting off exercising, putting off doing that diet, putting off that ache or pain, and putting it off till the simple ache and pain becomes actually a really big issue. Exercise problems, health and wellness, educational. So the big one also is these mental, emotional consequences. that, as I said earlier, one of them was talking about social isolation. I don't know why I can't say that word, guys. Usually I can, but social isolation. This feeling of being overwhelmed and overtaxed. You feel there's some feeling of decreased self-worth, that it's, man, I can't do anything. I can't even get this done. So it weighs on your emotional health. This topic that I came about watching, or should I say, looking at a website, Art of Manliness website, and it was this term that came out was motivation equation, or the procrastination equation, and this was coined by Dr. Piers Steele, and it's a concept of the procrastination equation. And as someone like me that's analytical, I love my flow charts, I love things being in a linear line, being like to see the connections, the interactions. So this drove home really hard with me. And this equation is motivation is equal to expectancy times the value divided by impulsiveness and delay. So let's unpack that a little bit. Your expectancy is what's your expectancy of success and the confidence that you have to do it times the perceived difficulty. Something you have a high expectancy of success, you probably going to, it works more towards getting the task done. Something is perceived as less difficult, you're going to, less hurdle to overcome, and the confidence to do it, whether you feel confident that you're going to be able to do it. Value, the variables and factors of value are the enjoyment of the task, the perceived reward, plus the personal tastes, and times the consequences. So if something is enjoyable, obviously you're going to tend to do it more. If it's not as enjoyable, it's going to lower that value. And the perceived consequences of getting the task done or not done. If the consequences are not so high, it's going to lower that value of that activity. Impulsiveness, this is distractibility, predisposition, and times opportunity. So someone with ADHD, that distractibility predisposition is off the charts. It just is. It's out of this atmosphere. The slightest thing can be distracting, and the opportunities for those distractions. And delay. This is your time plus urgency. So you've got a book report that's due at the end of the semester. That time is way at the end of the semester, and so it's not going to be as urgent. You can put it off and put it off and put it off until next thing you know, that book report is due tomorrow. And the urgency of it. Let's use taxes, for example. We know taxes are a year off. Everyone puts off doing their taxes till the day that it's till the deadline usually. High urgency, but the time to do it is long. So why are we going backwards? All right, we got some management, how to manage some of these. So taking this equation and breaking it down and using this to try and come up with some management ideas of how to move forward with this procrastination. Increase the expectancy factor. So remember back to the equation of we have expectancy at top. So the higher you can get that number, the easier that it is going to get motivated. So you can use things to increase that expectancy factor, such as vicarious victory, imagery of just thinking it through. Professional athletes use this all the time, where they imagine the task being completed in their head. So they have this imagery. Pep talks, memes, motivational talks, all that stuff is great as long as it doesn't become a crutch in and of itself. inspiration from others, just reading books of people that have succeeded inherently will make you want to do better yourself. Mental contrasting, where you're contrasting where you are versus where you want to be, and what you want versus what it is now. So if it's something that's high, you want to be at that higher position. You want to make that higher income. You want to be a better father. You want to be in better shape versus where you are now. Which one is takes more precedent? If you're in fairly good health now, exercising is hard to do because you're already healthy. So what do I need to work for? As opposed to when you get up in age and things are starting to break and creak and crack in your body, it can be a little late, and you didn't see this coming. Overcoming learned helplessness. So this is just changing that mental script of, I can do this. I'm not the person that I was. The things that happen, they're not there. Every day is a new day. Task management, breaking things down into smaller parts. This is probably one of the areas that I get personally hung up with the most. It's one of the reasons why this has taken so long just to get on film, is I've spent so much time trying to get things just right, working on lighting, working on the background, working on the audio, spending so much time watching videos on production and everything else. I've wasted days worth of hours just on that, when I could have just, you know what, get voice and image on film and be done with it, tweak it later. As you get better, you can tweak it more and you'll improve. So this is an area that I hyper focus on, but it's taking, as far as procrastination goes, it's taking that big heavy duty task, let's say taxes, or let's say a book report or whatever, breaking it down into smaller, more bite-sized pieces. As the joke goes, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Spending, like I said, for me, it's just I'm constantly reinventing the wheel. As an OT, documentation is hard for me, and so what do I spend most of my time, or a lot of my time, doing? Trying to come up with make new documentation forms to make documentation easier instead of just getting it done. It can become a time suck. We talked about that. Breaking in smaller pieces. Increase the value factor of the idea. Pick up more enjoyable tasks if you can. So if the drudgery of just reading a book or whatever the case is, maybe take it into a more enjoyable. So, okay, so you want to get into the habit of reading the classics, but the classics are just such a big mental bite to take over, or Shakespeare. It's just such a hard thing to dive right into. Start a reading habit of reading some fun things, some Clancy or something like that. Doing tasks in a social network. So back to taxes. Taxes can be hard to do. Sit down to the table and do them. Maybe have a tax party day. If it's something else, get together as a group and you all work together. And if it's a task if it's something that can be done as a group, or you can still at least be doing it individually, but you have that social network. When I was in OT school, studying was something that we actually made as a group of us. We did as a social. Sure, we all went into our own cubicles, did our own studying, but there was that social part that when one of us got bored doing what we were doing, walked over. It was usually me. I was usually the distracting person, but it helped. It helps just to break up that monotony. Changing your environment. If it's something that you don't like doing, do it in a more pleasurable environment. Using a reward system that if I get X done, I will treat myself to this. You can also use a consequence system. That there's some apps and there's some websites online that you can put in the task, and it'll, if you don't get it done, it will make a donation on your behalf to a recipient that you may not necessarily alike. So if you're a Democrat, it's going to make a donation to the Republican Party. So that can be a pretty good motivator. Consequences can be a good motivator on people. Connect task to a larger meaning. Something, if you have an idea, if you love the beach, if you want to move to Hawaii, you want to live in Hawaii, keep that as your carrot at the end of the stick, and just sometimes you just have to drudge through it, but connect those things to a higher meaning area. Decrease the impulsiveness factor. Eliminate distractions. That's an obvious one, but for someone who suffers with ADHD, that's the hardest thing. I can find enjoyment playing with lint. Improve your ability to concentrate. There are some things that you can do to improve your concentration ability. So getting involved with those. Sometimes concentration is not the problem. It's just you concentrate on the wrong stuff. I can concentrate. I can spend hours doing Sudoku, and so the concentration portion's fine. It's just getting it concentrating on the right part. Decreasing your delay factor. I told that earlier about breaking tasks down into their sub deadlines. So that is task analysis or task paralysis. This paralysis idea in a nutshell, where it it can be overcome, it can be worked on, but it's something that's real. It's not just a laziness issue. It's not just a procrastination issue where you're just not wanting to do work. Most people that suffer from this, they actually have a high drive to want to do things well and to want to succeed. It's just getting over that first hurdle and then getting over that second hurdle. So taking it just one hurdle at a time. So I appreciate you guys spending time with me, and I will be back as we start moving more towards this forward on this journey. Hopefully this is a good spark and will keep me going. So until next time, see you later.